Welcome to another round of the Healer's Corner with Melissa and Maria. We're going to talk some ethics tonight. And honestly, we were just talking about this before we got started. There's only really a handful of really, really important ones. So this one may be a little bit shorter, depending on interaction from our friends in the audience. If they have questions, by all means, feel free to ask questions, make comments. We'll respond to you live as we're recording. But yeah, we were like, how many are there? There's this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And that's kind of the big ones. Like those are the most important. So, but I think the biggest one, and we even were kind of like the most important, is like, please do not substitute energy healing for medical prescription and or advice from your doctor. Like they can go hand in hand. They can complement one another. Do not stop any medication, any therapies, regular follow-ups with your doctor, despite what an energy healer may say.
Or claim.
Yes. Yes. And I think that was another distinction that I'm like, you know what, that's really important. We should go over that from anybody who is really, really brand new. The distinction between a healer and like the medical community, right? Because some people I feel like try to use those interchangeably. And Maria, you had a good way of defining those out. So if you could, would you define for people the difference between the two?
A healer works with energy, but they're not licensed medically. But you can be a medical doctor or a nurse or somewhere in that field and also become a healer. So it's like, if this is to protect yourself and protect the client, because in the grand scheme of things, the client is the utmost what you're focusing at that time, what's best for the client. And you also want to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You also need to learn about your limitations as a healer. What might work for some people, another modality might not work for them, or it might work for them. So take my modality, pranic healing. I work with energy. I have had in the past said, this is not working. Maybe you need to seek out another practitioner. Or if there's another practitioner that you know of that works a different type of modality, you can recommend them.
Mm-hmm. I think that is really an important topic, which we kind of covered in the very beginning. Like the very first episode was that you are not the healer of everyone. So, it's not your job to save everybody in the world unless you are elevated up to a point of Christ, which by all means, then yes, go heal the world.
Yes.
But I don't think we have one walking around right now, which is a shame, because I feel like right now we really need one in the world. But, so be able and willing and keep your ego in check and say, you know what? I think you would get a greater benefit out of seeing a different type of healer, or, hey, this colleague of mine is really great in doing that. If you are open to maybe, kind of go over and talk with them. But, people that make the claims that they are healing all things, we're going to kind of segue into another kind of epic, right? Like, don't go around claiming that you're going to cure cancer, that you are going to reverse, people who are paralyzed. Like, stop. If that so happens, because we're like, really, we're holding the space for the client to heal themselves. So in all actuality, they're healing them. We are creating that safe space. We are helping that energy flow. We are, creating that for them. So to make the claims that you're going to cure cancer and that you're going to do this and that they're going to walk again and they're going to stand up out of that wheelchair, like, shush, shush. So be wary of that if you come across.
A lot more people need to know about the ethics of the boundaries is to help safeguard yourself and also the client.
Mhm.
And another thing too is like, and this is kind of great because I'm also a medical intuitive, and I really don't like to do that because then people start asking, "Oh, well, should I do this or should I take this or maybe I shouldn't take my med?" I go, "No, no, 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 no. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not a licensed physician. I'm not licensed in any way to prescribe or diagnose or anything. I'm just here to complement whatever your medical doctor is giving you, whether it's advice or medication, whatever."
Mhm. Yeah, they're complementary, not substitutes.
No.
So medical doctors come first. So, okay, we talked about knowing when to check your ego and when to allow another practitioner healer to step in and assume the role when you're just not vibing. We touched on grandiose claims of healing those who are paralyzed, those who are blind, those who have cancer. We talked about what obviously, like our banner says, we work in tandem and we complement medical advice, do not substitute the other. What other ones did we have, Maria? And guys, please feel free, ask questions, make comments, let us know
Mhm.
your experiences. We'd love to interact and share with you guys.
I mean, sometimes I have clients who have asked, can you suggest something? Again, that might be another gray area to get into. Um, as far as I mean, I work with essential oils. I do essential oils, but I will not outright say, okay, you need to take lavender, or you need to take this, or you need to take this. If they're saying, well, maybe I'm thinking about taking lavender and trying that out, I said, okay, try it out, find out if it works for you. That's different
Mhm.
because they've been thinking about it. You have not outright said you need to take, lavender oil.
Yes. And even that with the essential oils, those I feel like should come with the little addendum. Like before you start ingesting and really using those, you really need to do your research
Mm-hmm.
on oils because you can actually make yourself sick. You can poison yourself with them if misuse and overuse. Um, for instance, like lavender, you mentioned, everybody likes lavender. It's soothing, it's calming. Well, if you are pregnant, you need to be very careful using lavender because it's such a relaxant. You can miscarry. But do they put that on those little bottles? No. Do the MLM, oil representatives tell you that? No, because they don't even know. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really do your due diligence on certain things, herbs and oils and even teas at times, right? Because those are beautiful
Mm-hmm.
things. So be careful, discuss with your doctor, find a certified aromatherapist who's actually trained in that before you go too willy-nilly on
Mm-hmm.
some. Um, I mean, you can burn your skin with some of them even.
Yeah, and it can interact with your medication that you've been prescribed by your medical doctor.
Yes. So, for example, I know a lot of people know like you're not supposed to have grapefruit if you're on certain mood medications. And well, that applies for the essential oil of those, grapefruit, orange, lemon, certain ones like that. Like that also means the essential oil. So, you know, do your due diligence, do your research. But we are not going to tell you to put, lemon in your water, X amount of drops 3 times a day. Like That is not our place to do that. We don't know what your doctor has told you. Is
Mm-hmm.
really not our business. We're not going to sit there and be like, what did your doctor say on this date? And what did they prescribe? And what was your blood pressure? And what was your height and weight and your BMI? Like, that's not why you're coming to us anyway. So, the things that you're going to adjust and do with your body, that needs to run through a medical professional. Now, another thing that we were kind of thinking about and be like, oh, this one's important, was who you can and can't ask energy work and healing on, right? There can be a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Parents asking for their children, absolutely. Have I asked Maria to help with, my son and some issues he has had? Absolutely. Is it my place to ask Maria to help my neighbor who maybe is going through some medical condition who I only know in passing? No,
Mm-mm.
it is not. Nor, and as you and I both experienced, if there is a client, a patient who is in the process of checking out of this world, if they're energetically saying no and don't, you don't get to overwrite that.
Mm-mm. No.
So, Divine says during a class at a local pagan festival, as we were talking about energy healing and how it works, a lady said, oh, this is great. I can stop taking my medications. I stopped the class with no, absolutely no. And I'm glad you
Yes.
no, don't, full stop. And and I get it, right? People are hopeful. They're looking for that thing to fix, especially if it's been a long road to either recovery or something like an autoimmune that there are no cures for. Like they're hoping for that miracle, but medical science hasn't gotten there yet. Um, Unfortunately, because otherwise I'd be like, woo, happier. I'm sure you would too. I'm like, I can think of a whole bunch of people that'll be like, yes. But yeah, no, never stop taking your medication just because you're seeing an energy healer. And I would almost say if they tell you to stop, you need to stop seeing them.
Yes. Yes.
The cessation action needs to happen, stop in that reverse order, needs to happen completely differently. But thanks for pointing that out, Divine, and sharing that. I'm glad you did stop that class.
Yeah.
I hope it was a resounding no, not just no, but like no. And really get that out there for other people. And I'm sure there were other people in the area who were just as like, oh, as you were about it. Now, Marie, did you have any other ethics that I might be forgetting to cover? No. So a parent can ask for a child, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
would you say a child could ask for a parent?
No. No.
What if the parent would be open but are unable to come? Like maybe, you know, parent lives in another state, is going through something, likes to get energy healing, but because they're out of state, they can't see you. What would you suggest then?
As long as the parent is willing
Mhm.
and it's a little bit different with a child asking for a parent. I have to hear it from the parent. So either I have the parent call me
Mhm.
or the child can do a conference call.
Okay.
I have to hear it from the parent because that's like a gray area that you don't really want to go there. Um, but if a parent asks for a child, that's different because it's a child, it's a minor, so
Mhm.
that's different. Um, I have had instances like the one that we had with our friend. Couldn't ask any of the family members. So what I did is I actually astral traveled. I went into meditation, astral traveled, and I talked to their highest, guides and whatnot. And if they gave me an okay, then I will go ahead and do the healing. But if they're saying no, I won't. You cannot play God. They have a free will. They had certain things that they needed to learn, do, or whatever. And how would you feel if someone would go ahead and do a healing on you and you come out of it, but you don't really want to be in this world anymore? That's worse than being in a prison cell, because you're a prisoner in your body and you're made to stay in this world.
That kind of happened in a way with my one grandmother. Um, she passed, she had a DNR, and for some reason, the people closest to her that were responding right there, because of course I found out later, and I did not know she had a DNR though. Somehow that DNR was either overlooked or not known about until after she was brought back. And let me tell you, grandma was pissed. She was so mad. And I'm like, you know what? I would be too.
Yeah.
Me too. And because before she passed, she was seeing, my grandfather, who I never met because he passed long, long, long before I was ever born, her son, who had passed long before I was ever born. So she had already been talking to them anyway. And, she had never remarried, never, she was waiting to see her family again. And she got yoinked back. She was not a happy camper, let me tell you. And I'm like, grandma, same. I'm right there. I can see why you're mad. I would be too. So it can kind of, I think the reason why it's okay with parents for children is because if that parent is seeking out the healing and the help for the child, it is coming from a good place. As the parents, you're kind of in that no better space anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And you have an overreaching view of kind of what's going on, or as much as you can, right? Certain young people are really good at hiding stuff from their parents, but parents, we've been there, done that. We did it first. We understand, right?
Yeah.
That's how we know when you ain't sneaking out. We know you're gone. Like, so whereas if it's a child, like a grown adult asking for a parent, it's like, is that parent really ready to go? Are they willing to, kind of suffer a disease maybe in hopes to go out? So is it really your place to try and supersede that? And if it's a case where that, parent is in a non-responsive state, that's where the healer then has, like Maria said, you go in and you contact those guides, that higher self, and say, is it okay to, is it my place to, and, kind of take it from there. But of course, it's the discretion of the healer, and if really, or not the discretion, but the responsibility to find
It's a responsibility. Yeah.
And if you're told no, then you are to honor that. And if you try to ignore that, nothing's really going to happen anyway, because the patient is in control
Mm-hmm.
of that healing. So, what about healing on friends' pets without telling them?
I have done healings on pets of friends. They know what I do. So that was a very open, they know what I do. But as far as somebody who doesn't know what you're doing, that you are a healer, that you work with energy, that's still, again, another gray area.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know if that pet is under some kind of medication from the vet. You don't know what, and you don't want to. I had pets who made the transition, and I did have a pet that I did the healing on, and I was able to keep her for another year. But it was something that I had to ask that pet. I did a pet communication. And she allowed me to do the healing on her because it was my pet. But that's another gray area that you do not want to walk into because you don't know if that pet is ready to transition also.
For the friend's pet, if that friend's pet is in a situation and for some reason the friend is just oblivious or isn't paying attention to or isn't like acknowledging, right? Because there are some people who pets are just pets, they're not part of the family, you know?
Mhm.
They're like, oh, okay. But I would like to think that that's at times where you do more than just have a healer step in. Like maybe a phone call needs to be made to local authorities. And maybe by that point, that's not even your friend, right? Because who would be friends with that type of person? So here we
Yeah.
go. Answer that question anyway. Um, kind of similar, like if you are an energy healer and, maybe you're volunteering at a shelter and you've got rooms full of animals. You know, I know one tactic we learned in for practical Reiki is kind of sending Reiki to a situation or to a room, a place. And so you can, put healing energy in that space that the animals are in. So they're in
Mhm.
there and they can pull that in if they so choose to and need to. You can also put healing energy into the adoption process
Mhm.
so they can find, the right, appropriate home quickly to get them out as quickly as possible. Um, so that's always something. I have recently with my boyfriend, we go Mondays up to one of the local shelters where he adopted his own little black cat, and I have found that every one of the little animals that I end up going, if I didn't have City, I would bring you home. They're always gone by the next week. And now I'm like, oh, I got to do this to all of them. Um, pet, love, love. I would take you home. So hopefully none of them are there next week. Um, but that's one thing, kind of like a shelter. So maybe not necessarily that particular animal, but you could do the whole room.
Mhm.
So that even helps the people who are having to surrender for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I have done that too when I have gone into a shelter. I have gone there and I just projected all this love energy in there. It's just in general. I just projected it. So that is something that and whatever is going to come out of that, whether a pet is going to get adopted, you're going to find the right owner, or even just to keep the stress level down, because in a shelter, it is very stressful because of all these animals. They don't know why they're there, they don't know what happened, you know, and just to calm down the whole energy. So that's a different scenario than actually doing healing on someone else's pet without them knowing what you do,
Mhm.
or not even, understanding the energy part of it.
Yeah. Um, all right, guys. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Um, or we're going to end up rambling, or it'll be a shorter episode because we really wanted to cover the whole like, don't play God, don't make stupid claims, don't stop your medication Um, and I'm like, those are like the real big important ones. Don't go around trying
Yes.
to heal everyone without their permission. Uh,
Yes.
with the little, bullet point of parent to child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that could even be a little, right? Because sometimes we have helicopter parents.
Mm-hmm.
Think there's something's wrong when there's not,
Mm-hmm.
and if the I would like to think if the healer is really paying attention to the situation and the energy of what's being asked and how you're going to pick up on like, no, that kid really isn't being a menace. The mom just wants, XYZ, and the young person is achieving, you know, LMNOP, and that's perfect for the kid, but because it's not exactly, there's nothing to heal, there's nothing to fix
Mm-hmm.
other than maybe the perception of the parent. So
Usually when that what I have had clients that have said that to me about their son, daughter, whatever. I said, well, why don't we not focus on them? Why don't we do a healing on you?
Whoa.
So that
Shots
I turned it
fired.
around. I said, why don't we do a healing on you? Because you're already here. They may have booked a reading. I said, why don't we do a healing on you? And that's when I usually do a psychological energy healing on them to help them calm down and maybe take a step back and breathe and say, okay, maybe I need to give my son or daughter some space.
Hmm.
So I always turn it around that way. Um, and I do ask, like, usually if it's a child like around 16, 17, later in their teens, I said, have this discussion with your son or your daughter first and have them come and see me if
Hmm.
they're ready, you know.
Hmm.
Because around 16, 17, they're going through a whole lot of stuff right there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and like you said, helicopter parents, they may not do it the way they want it to do. So I said, I want my daughter to come and see you. I said, well, that discussion with your daughter. Once
Hmm.
I find out they're around 16, 17, yeah, they may not want to. Um,
They may not
so
feel that there's anything wrong in their life that they need to have fixed anyway.
yes.
So,
For me as an energy healer, I think the biggest thing that was hard for me was when it becomes a family member.
mm,
So I had a family member contact me because it was during COVID. And I said, well, I go, did you, is, and it was another family member was in the hospital. And I said, okay. I said, did you talk to this family member? And she said, no. I said, talk to this family member first. And not all of my family knows what I do. So I had the discussion, and then she called back and she said, okay, it's a go. I said, okay, fine. But I still had to get confirmation from his guides.
mm,
And I knew, I just knew, I had this feeling and I got this knowing, and I also got this word, no. So
mm,
that was the hardest thing for me as a healer because it's someone that's close to me. It's a family.
mhm,
So in that instance, what I did was I did enough to make them feel comfortable and have clarity on what they want to decide on. I didn't do a full healing, because I knew this person did not know whether they want to stay or go because they did have COVID.
but yeah, if you guys have any other questions or comments, we were discussing the ethics of energy healing, and we gave a few warnings of what to look for if you go in for a new healer round. And if they're claiming that they do such things like cure cancer or paralysis, you need to get up and walk out. If they tell you to stop medication prescribed by your doctor, you need to stop talking to them. um, it is generally okay as a parent to request healing for your child. What about spouse?
Again, that is a gray area because as an adult, they have free will and they're an adult. So, um, some spouses think this is woo woo.
It's usually the
mine,
guy side, yeah.
mine is one of them. Um,
All these years, he hasn't come over to the dark side yet. He's still holding out over there.
oh yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
that man
yeah.
is committed over there, isn't he?
He is one of them. He thinks this is woo woo. He thinks this is okay. I go, okay, go ahead. Go see it. Go spend all that money on the doctors. That's fine. Go ahead. But I can complement this. Um, he had, well, it was funny because he has these outbursts and it just comes. It just comes. And he was just so tired that one time. And he was like, I said, do you trust me? Let me do what I do. No, no, no. About 15 minutes after that, he said, okay, go ahead. Just do it. So I did it. And then the hiccup stopped and he was able to fall asleep. So the next morning, I said, so what do you think about that? Oh, I knew it was already going off it was my body just, I was like, okay, whatever. He has an explanation for everything. So,
Mhm.
and if that is fine with him and that what keeps him going through the day, then that's fine.
It I really thought by now, after all the years you've been doing he would have finally, like, grudgingly, like, "Okay,
Mm-mm,
okay."
mm-mm. My daughter actually was the one who also finds this very much like woo woo. And she go, okay. And she went for 6 months going, buying all over the counter. And she had a cold that just would not leave her. And she said, Mom, and I said, okay, let me do what I do. And she was living in her own apartment at that time. So I go, let me do what. And she go, what do you need me to do? And I said, I need you to just tell me when you go to bed. So if you're going to go to bed or maybe getting ready. As long as I know that you're not going to be out driving, because
Right.
energy hits people differently. She said, okay, fine. So she told me, and I did a series of 3 healings for her, 3 nights, distant healings. And she was fine. But to this day, if she still gets sick, she will go to the doctor, buy over the counter stuff. She exhausts all of that first
Of course.
before she calls mom. Those two. My son actually, he's like, okay, just go do mom. I don't wanna, can I just lie down? Can you do what you do? I'm lying down. I go, okay, fine. So he's okay with it. But the other, no, it's woo woo.
It's funny though but she'll grudgingly though at least let you when all the over counter stuff isn't
Yeah,
working.
yeah.
Yeah. It's funny when my son was younger, he was more into it, like actively seeking to be a part of. And as he got older, probably about 15 on is when he kind of started, coming away. But there were times where like he would like in the car on the way to a taekwondo tournament and you can just feel him like the nerves and everything. Like it felt like the whole car was shaking. And I kind of knew before leaving that he was going to be nervous. So I had stuck my little Kintu Mesa like in my hoodie pocket because it would fit. And so I would just casually like, oh, that's just it's cramping the seatbelt. So, it was my excuse to pull it out and just kind of put it like in that cup holder area of the car. And I'd see him look down and he'd be rocking a little bit. He's like, can I hold that? Yeah, you can. He's like, okay. And he'd like put it up by his stomach and like I'm like, funny, mom's woo woo works when you need it, huh? Um, so it's he crosses back and forth over that line at times. Um, but unfortunately, he doesn't actively. He's like Reiki 1 or 2, like certified himself, and I'm like, so you practicing your Reiki? He's like, no, I think I forgot it. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. Just know you got it. You can use it as you need. It's all right. Um, but I need some of that Schedule One energy, right?
So yeah, spouses also the ethics there. They are the adult, and they have free will, so they need to know what's that.
Yeah.
You have seek and talk to a healer, and would they be willing to go through a session? And that's it.
And
It's just the ethics.
if it's an unfortunate case, maybe where they're unable to physically speak and ask, that's where the healer would then ask the guides, the higher self, if it's
Mm-hmm.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that the harder part is if you get a no after asking that, of having to tell the spouse asking, like they've said
Mm-hmm.
no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that can be tough, especially if somebody is transitioning.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the other important part, that energy healers are not doctors or medical doctors, but medical doctors can be energy healers. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you have any question about that with your energy healer, by all right, and by all means, ask if they are an MD of a medical profession, be it psychological, physiological, before,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're like, well, you need to stop taking that. Why? Who said? Where's your MD on the wall? Show me your credentials. And keep an eye out for outrageous claims if you are seeking an energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that was
Yeah.
tonight.
If you're a client, you are always in complete control, and you can, they're there. You can ask them all the questions that you need to ask. Use your God-given gift of discernment.
Mm-hmm.
We all have this. We were born with it. Question, question, question. And as a healer, this was pounding my head. With great knowledge, there's great responsibility. And it was my teacher, master. He kept on saying that with great knowledge, there's great responsibility. And along with that, he said, also bring in the love, because you got to feel where your client is coming from. They might be in a desperate that they're looking for the magic wand, the magic pill. They might be that desperate, but you have to, have a conversation with them, and they need to understand you're there as a energy. You're not as a medical profession person. You cannot diagnose. You cannot prescribe.
Well, thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.